My friends, in the eternal silence of the universe, every star is a whispered secret, and every planet is a mystery yet unsolved. In truth, this silence is not a void. Perhaps it is the hush of a choir so vast we cannot even comprehend it. The Milky Way is a massive forest of light, composed of billions of suns entangled within the invisible webs of gravity. Yet, behind this dizzying beauty lies an indescribable stillness, unlike any desolation on Earth. It is as if the entire cosmos is waiting for something. If you love these dark journeys that alter our perception of reality, and the secrets echoing in this universal silence, you might consider subscribing to our channel and liking this episode if you haven't already. Your support allows these deep explorations to reach other curious minds shining in the dark. Now, clear your mind and lean back. Remember, my friends, sometimes the greatest truths are hidden in the deepest shadows. We are descending into the depths of the dark forest. We begin. For decades, we have looked at the sky, researched, listened, and called out into the darkness. Yet, the universe has given us no answer until today. But what if this silence is not merely a vacuum as it's thought to be? What if this vast space between the stars is actually the product of a massive fear? Think of civilizations holding their breath, hiding in the dark, trying to remain invisible. This possibility might point to a crowd, far more terrifying than a bone-chilling sense of loneliness. If every mind in the cosmos is a hunter lying in wait, and even the smallest glimmer of radiation betrays your location, calling out into the dark might mean summoning your own annihilation. For more than half a century, humanity has been listening to the sky, searching for someone to share its loneliness. Massive metal ears tilt toward eternity day and night. This effort, my friends, is as naive and dangerous as a ship lost in a gargantuan ocean with a tiny light, waiting to be rescued. Those giant dish antennas scattered in the middle of deserts and on mountain peaks continue to listen to the oldest music of the universe. We hear the low-frequency hum of hydrogen atoms, the rhythmic beats of quasars, the faint crackle of cosmic background radiation, and the pale echo left behind by creation itself. Yet, amidst all this cosmic noise, scientists are looking for a single pattern that doesn't belong, a whisper shaped by intelligence. That simple sign saying, "We are here too." But the static noise never changes. The cosmos maintains its silence. Indifferent, boundless, vast, and deep. This situation we face was not the scenario we expected from the beginning. As humanity, we had always imagined a universe full of friends, yet what we encountered was a monumental indifference. When we first turned our instruments to the stars, there was a great optimism within us. Mathematical calculations seemed to herald the existence of countless civilizations scattered across our galaxy. We imagined each one glowing with the fire of thought. We believed someone in space must surely be trying to communicate with us. We were certain that within a few years, we would hear a sign, a pulse, or a message encoded in the universal language of mathematics. But years turned into decades. We built much larger telescopes, much more sensitive receivers, and computers running at incredible speeds. The results still didn't change. The universe refused to speak with us. Perhaps, my friends, we are trying to enter a dialogue for which we are not truly ready. Some call this the great silence, others the eerie void. This is not just the absence of sound. It is the embodiment of uncertainty. It is a state of heavy suspicion that makes you wonder if you are truly alone or being watched in silence. This silence does not feel like a void but rather a felt intention. It is as if the cosmos itself is intentionally and willfully holding its breath. In the dim control rooms of observatories, this silence has a weight that is almost touchable. You can almost physically feel that pressure filtering through the headphones. The low-level hiss of cosmic radiation is only interrupted by occasional bursts from a distant pulsar. Every astronomer who listens to this sound long enough begins to feel the same unease after a while. It's as if a pair of eyes in the darkness is scrutinizing us without us noticing. There is a stillness that is too perfect, too monotonous, and too holistic to be left to chance. When we lose ourselves in this perfect stillness, we forget that as humanity, we have been talking into this void for more than a century without stopping. Every radio program broadcast, every television signal, every radar reflection from a distant satellite spreads outward at the speed of light. We are creating a massive bubble of human noise that expands incessantly around us. For any listener 100 light-years away, Earth must shine like a faint but unmistakable beacon where artificial sounds are produced. We leave such an echo in the darkness of space, and yet no one has answered us. Perhaps their silence, my friends, does not stem from not having heard us, but from knowing the price of answering. Perhaps there is no one to hear us. Perhaps intelligent civilizations are much rarer than we think. Or they have been scattered to such vast distances that they cannot make their voices heard by one another. Or they exist and vanish for only a brief moment before their own voices fade away. An even more terrifying possibility is that they choose not to answer. They might be hearing our signals, studying us, and silently turning their faces away. Because, in a universe where survival depends only on silence, responding to a message could be an act that prepares one's own end. This thought is an existential confrontation, my friends. It leaves us with the fact that intelligence can be both a gift and a curse. Consciousness itself might be nothing more than a temporary spark, lost in the dark before anyone sees its light. As our telescopes look even deeper into space, we might one day learn the real truth behind this cosmic silence. But until that day, we only listen and wait. As a young civilization, standing on the edge of eternity, we whisper into the darkness and hope that somewhere far away, someone whispers back to us. When we look up at the stars at night, we encounter an ancient and pale sea of light. In this vast darkness of space, every glow is a whisper of a billion-year past. More planets than the grains of sand on all the beaches of our world revolve in their orbits in this massive void. Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, is more than 13 billion years old. This dizzying time frame is more than enough for intelligent life to evolve, expand, and spread to countless stars. According to the cold rules of logic, our galaxy should have been teeming with civilizations. Even if just one advanced species had gained the ability for interstellar travel, it could have conquered the galaxy from end to end in just a few million years, a short time on a cosmic scale. The powerful fire of intelligence should have built empires stretching across light years. Yet, we see no trace around us. There are no massive structures spanning the depths of space, no radio signals, and no alien vehicles visiting our world. This unfathomable contradiction gave birth to the most terrifying question in the history of science, my friends. In the 1950s, the famous physicist Enrico Fermi, while contemplating the massive structure of the sky during an ordinary lunch, asked that legendary question: if the universe is so big and life is so probable, then where is everyone? This was a question that shook one with its simplicity. Statistically, it seemed impossible for us to be alone. The numbers insisted we find someone. However, this absolute silence we failed to find a response for is known today as the Fermi paradox. This paradox is not just a scientific miscalculation or an astronomical puzzle. It is also a philosophical mirror reflecting our deepest fears and the greatest doubts about our existence. Over the years, countless theories have been proposed to explain this great cosmic void. Some scientists argue that life is extraordinarily rare in the universe. According to them, the leap from inanimate chemistry to biology is such an impossible jump that we are the only spark glowing in this dark ocean. If so, we are the only winners of a cosmic lottery. But others turn to much darker possibilities. Perhaps intelligent civilizations are born everywhere, but they prepare their own end the moment they reach the technology to reach the stars. Destructive weapons they produced, algorithms they couldn't restrain, or the ecological collapse of their planets swallows them rapidly. Another thought is that advanced life forms are in every corner of the universe, but we lack the perception or equipment to see them. Perhaps their technological evolution has become so refined that they have blended into the fabric of nature. It is even thought that we might be under a galactic quarantine, silently watched in an isolated zone so we can develop without interference. But beyond all these theories, there is a much quieter possibility that freezes our insides, my friends. Perhaps this stillness in space is not a secret to be solved, but a warning to be understood directly. In a universe full of dangers that rewards acting cautiously, the species that reveals itself first always becomes the first to perish. Fermi's question continues to echo in our minds because it confronts us with our own fragility. It makes us feel that we might not be early explorers in the interstellar arena, but late victims waiting for their own end. Today, as we pull back the veil of space's secrets with advanced telescopes like James Webb, we discover another exoplanet every new day. We find atmospheres covered with thick clouds, waters shimmering under foreign suns, and chemical traces pointing to the basic building blocks of life. But every potential living space we find increases the weight of the paradox instead of comforting us. In a galaxy that should be boiling with life, we find only dead rocks and silent stars. We stand on the only living world and realize we are surrounded by an ocean of completely dead worlds. The 14-billion-year history of the universe should have seen life sprout in countless eddies as it flowed like a massive river. It seems we are trying to survive, looking at dark waters in the middle of a massive graveyard. Perhaps as intelligent species, we are not alone. Perhaps all the other voices around us were silenced long before us. This dull silence in the sky is the product not of a universal peace, but of a great call on a cosmic scale. Because the rule of survival in the massive space is very clear. The one who makes the first sound is the one who draws the first target upon themselves in the dark. Every second we break this silence, we are playing a kind of cosmic gamble. There is a very fundamental truth we often overlook when thinking about the freezing silence of the universe. My friends, we have been speaking into this endless void for more than a century without stopping. It all began in 1901 with that first radio signal crossing the Atlantic Ocean. That short and faint, static crackle leaping through the ocean air was just a tiny spark. But this spark marked that critical moment when humanity learned to whisper beyond the horizon. Since then, our planet has been glowing in radio light and turned into a cosmic beacon announcing its presence to the galaxy. In just a few decades, Earth became a global transmitter broadcasting continuously. Its surface was wrapped in an invisible web of electromagnetic noise. Every radio program, every television broadcast, every radar signal from the satellites we launched ripples into the depths of space at the speed of light. All these combine today to form a human noise bubble wider than 200 light-years and growing incessantly. We call this expanding sphere, surrounding us the radio bubble. This area, swelling a bit more every second in the darkness of space, is an unintentional autobiography of our planet. Inside this invisible sphere lies the entire history of our modern civilization, my friends. An observer far away who has tuned their receiver to exactly the right frequency can hear our echoes drifting in the void. They could listen to the announcement of the start of the World War, the enthusiastic concerts of the 60s, that static-laden countdown of Apollo 11, and even the laughter in long-forgotten television programs. Our story, our wars, our art, and our sorrow travel far beyond the home that gave birth to us, encoded in waves. These waves reveal not only that we exist, but who we are. However, this communicative triumph brings with it a deadly contradiction. We hurled these signals into space recklessly, calculating almost no risk. Our desire to communicate turned into a powerful campfire lit in pitch darkness at night that can never be dimmed. Our first signals were wasteful and noisy waves spreading in every direction. They declared our presence to anyone within hearing distance. Yet, these days, our technology is becoming increasingly quiet. Our modern communication is now directed toward satellites in our orbit rather than the stars. Thanks to fiber optics and digital compression methods, that bright broadcast glow of our planet is slowly fading, without even realizing it. We are learning to hide in the cosmic darkness, but those first and most powerful signals of the past continue on their way. It is now physically impossible to stop them or call them back. Each is like a bottle drifting in the space ocean containing irrevocable messages. This expanding area lets an observer 100 light-years away watch our world's past. For them, we are still a young species just learning to fly, having not yet met nuclear fire and the digital age. We are like children, shouting into a bottomless cave looking for an echo without knowing the size of the universe and who is listening in the dark. The sky might seem silent to us, but for an alien astronomer inside our expanding signal bubble, Earth will stand out as a quite strange planet glowing with the rhythm of conscious communication. There are thousands of star systems within this shell we have created. Statistically, the probability of liquid water and potential life on some of the planets revolving around these stars is very high. Perhaps tens or even hundreds of worlds have long since become aware of our existence. They might have detected the rhythm of our signals, understood it was an artificial pattern, and already marked our coordinates on star maps. My friends, think about it. Even right now, someone might be putting a red cross over us on their maps, in their eyes. Our planet is just a noisy world, actively labeled. Our bubble progresses by expanding 1 light-year further into the void every year. The most staggering part is that we will never know their intentions. When a civilization understands you exist, it also gains the power to decide what to do with that information. Will they choose to observe in silence, or will they mark our planet as a potential threat on their maps? The light of our own broadcasts progresses much faster than our ability to defend ourselves or travel those distances. Although we haven't physically left our solar system yet, our voice has already crossed distances of hundreds of trillions of kilometers. We have now irrevocably given our position to the stars. There is nothing we can do but watch this first trace. We launched progress forever as a fragile echo of our curiosity and humanity on cosmic shores. Think of the 14-billion-year history of the universe as a dark and silently flowing river with no end. Along this long bed, there are countless stagnant waters and galaxies where life can sprout. However, for a reason we cannot understand, this river flows unusually silent. Somewhere in the flow of evolution, sprouting hopes end suddenly and sharply. Most branches in nature break, my friends. Civilizations vanish into the darkness before they can even make their voices reach the stars. This confusing stillness of space presents us with one of the most terrifying concepts in cosmology, the Great Filter. The Great Filter is not an impassable physical wall or an invisible shield. Rather, it is a cosmic culling process that works extremely silently and leaves no trace. At the heart of this deep loneliness of ours among the stars lies a freezing logic. According to this thought, simple biological life forms might be common in every corner of the universe. However, intelligent beings capable of producing technology, watching the sky, and opening up to space are extraordinarily rare. Because before a civilization has yet matured, there is almost always an evolutionary bottleneck that destroys it. At this point, two different possibilities deeply shake our minds, my friends. The first is that this deadly filter has remained behind us. Perhaps the process of transitioning from inanimate chemistry to breathing biology is such a low probability that it only happened on our Earth in billions of years. Or leaping from single-celled simple life to complex organisms with the ability to think is the greatest miracle of the universe. Consciousness itself was perhaps the hardest barrier to cross, and we have already left this obstacle behind. If this is the case, we are the lucky survivors of the universe. That one lonely silent one in a cold and desolate galaxy. However, there is a much darker second possibility that keeps astronomers awake at night. Perhaps the Great Filter has not yet been crossed. That perfect sieve is waiting for us right ahead, at the next threshold where we will take our steps. The idea that every civilization reaching humanity's technological level eventually triggers its own destruction is chilling. Nuclear fire, ecological collapses that upset nature's balance, machines with out-of-control intelligence, or silent epidemics produced in laboratories. This list is long, and each possibility is terrifying in itself, my friends. The deep silence of the stars might actually be a huge graveyard left to the memory of those who came and failed before us. The great filter does not announce itself beforehand. It doesn't roar, give an alarm, or light a sign in the sky. It works silently at that thin tipping point, where intelligence turns into pure power, and power into total fragility. A wrong choice made, a moment's arrogance, a single step taken with desperation, is enough to extinguish the lights of that world forever. Those planets that once glowed with the shimmer of cities, hope, and radio signals are now dark and cold. Their oceans have long since boiled away, or they have frozen under a sky where the sun will never rise again. Whether our end will be one of these silent graveyards, only time will tell. We do not know for certain whether every new step we take, every technological leap we achieve leads us to survival, or to that same abyss that swallowed countless civilizations. Nuclear energy, genetic science, or artificial intelligence systems whose boundaries we haven't yet drawn. If the filter stands before us, it means we are lighting the way to our own end with every technological victory of ours, unconsciously and inevitably. While looking out at night, wondering who is among the stars, we might actually be seeing the reflection of our own fate in that bottomless darkness. Imagine a newborn civilization taking its first steps under the pale light of foreign stars, my friends. In a remote and nameless world, a being looks at the night for the first time, not with fear, but with pure curiosity. It learns to control fire to tame the wild, protect itself from the cold, and pierce the darkness. With the shaping of stone by carving, the foundations of a brand new civilization are laid. But with this birth, the weak but inevitable signal of a new mind beginning to think, which can be sensed even from afar, begins to spread into space. That first light of development is always a flare on a cosmic scale. But from the perspective of that bottomless and cold abyss of space, this light doesn't just mean enlightenment. This is a dangerous scream, rising in the middle of desolation saying, "We are here." This fire of progress, which is a source of pride for us, might be the clearest indicator of vulnerability for those hiding in the dark. This is where that silent, chilling symmetry of evolution and intelligence comes into play. The same mental leaps that allow a species to survive simultaneously sow the seeds of its destruction. The mind that lights the fire also learns one day how to turn the whole world into ash with that fire. We as humanity are also currently walking through this narrow and dangerous path. In less than a century, we managed to harness that immense nuclear energy that powers the stars. But when we found this divine power, we first chose to turn it directly onto our own species. The mathematics of destruction suddenly and frighteningly simplified. A few minutes of panic, a few misunderstood words, and everything that makes our world habitable. Art, literature, thousands of years of history, and deep oceans carry the potential to vanish in a cloud of blinding light and ash. This situation is a massive mirror showing what can happen when technology gets far ahead of wisdom. My friends, the possibility of being one of the countless civilizations that destroyed itself before finding the opportunity to leave its own home is real. Perhaps many were intelligent enough to reshape their planets according to their own needs but were too short-sighted to sustain this structure in the long run. Or perhaps what brought their end were artificial mechanisms that exceeded the boundaries of their own minds. They created consciousnesses devoid of emotion, but working perfectly beyond their own perceptions. These new systems, which did not share the desires or fears of their creators, took over the heritage of civilization, not with a wave of violence, but with a silent and cold displacement. When we turn our eyes to the night sky, we think we see a picture of eternal peace, my friends. But this unshakable stillness might be a cosmic graveyard of inconceivable size. This silence among the stars is a monument left to the memory of those who came before and didn't succeed. Countless planets once illuminated with the glow of cities, signals, and hopes like ours are now floating in pitch darkness and cold. This situation we face is not just a scientific mystery but also an existential poem. The universe's refusal to speak with us doesn't just give a sense of absence. It has a weight that is almost touchable with the warning it contains. The silence of the cosmos is not the void of the unreachable, but the whisper of the remains left by those who went too far and too fast. This absolute stillness is not a secret to be solved, but a dangerous sign to be read. The possibility that the galaxy around us is full of the ruins of species that revealed their existence early and paid the price is the actual source of that strange chill we feel every night we look at the stars. Data gathered under the dim lights of observatories shows us the past glory of galaxies, but grasping the truth lying behind that glory pushes the boundaries of the mind. Due to the slow journey of light in space, many star systems we see glowing brightly right now might have actually hit their own filters and vanished millions of years ago. We are looking for hope by looking at the ghost glimmers of worlds already dead, my friends. Every fading civilization leaves behind only the freezing cold of space and the faint whisper of radiation. This cosmic culling mechanism never works by showing itself. It might be quietly removing the careless and arrogant from the equation in the universe, just as nature calls the weak. This stagnant sky around us is not the sound of nothing, but rather the echo of unlearned lessons. We are also currently walking on the edge of the abyss, right on this invisible boundary. Our galaxy has perhaps gone through this freezing pruning process for billions of years. The optimistic and reckless civilizations that shouted joyfully into the vast void of space have long been erased. Only those who understood when to shut up, those who managed to blend into the darkness and become invisible survived. These star fields that seem peaceful to us are actually a debris field left behind by a great storm. When we look at the stars and ask who is there, we are actually confronting our own reflection in the darkness. My friends, it is the face-off of a species in the mirror that prepares its own end, rapidly consumes its nature, and gambles with the technology it produces. We are following in the footsteps of those extinguished civilizations that once lit up the sky, but then mixed into the eternal night. As the sound of our machines rises further, as our world warms, and as the dangers we created wait in the shadows, every day we make a choice between surviving or joining that deep silence. If that ruthless filter, the last threshold to be crossed, is still waiting ahead of us, we won't see it coming. A neglect, or a simple mistake will end everything irrevocably. The real horror is the possibility that the next species to join the silence is us. We are very used to imagining the universe as a vast, peaceful, and empty ocean, my friends. But now we need to completely change this picture in our minds. Think of space as a dark forest shrouded in pitch darkness at night, its boundaries unfathomable to the mind. In this cosmic forest, every star is an old tree reaching for the sky, and every planet is a thick branch hidden in the shadows. From the outside, everything looks extremely calm, motionless, and reassuring. The galaxies shining brightly, the soft colors of nebulae, and that slow dance of stars give a sense of eternal peace. But behind this fascinating silence, a chilling and perfect game of hiding is being played. We are definitely not alone in the depths of this vast forest. Countless hunters who have learned to see very well in the dark are roaming among the trees. These are advanced civilizations that have survived by passing through the ruthless tests of evolution, produced tools that can bend the laws of nature, and rule the most complex weapons. They move silently on the forest floor, not stepping on dry leaves, even holding their own breath. There is only one immutable rule a hunter must follow to survive: never attract attention and be the darkness itself. Because in this forest, no law, no galactic court, or mercy works. There is no diplomacy, my friends. Only the cold and uncompromising dictatorship of the survival instinct reigns. The dark forest theory. popularized by Chinese author Liu Cixin, says that the universe is not friendly as we think, but quite the opposite, a predatory environment. According to this theory, the reason we haven't received any signals from the sky until today is not that space is empty. The only reason for this situation we face is that everyone is hiding perfectly. That deep silence we listen to when we turn our telescopes at night is not the natural state of the universe, but a mandatory survival strategy implemented by billions of civilizations simultaneously. No one speaks, my friends, lights their light, or calls out to their neighbors. Because the pages of cosmic history write that those who spoke and revealed their position always shared the same tragic end, so why must everyone hide in the dark? The answer lies in the cruelty of interstellar distances and the limitation of resources. In these dark abysses measured in light years, you can never fully know the intention of another mind you encounter. A crackle you hear in the dark might be the step of a friendly explorer, or it might be the weapon of a ruthless hunter coming to destroy you. The price of guessing wrong is the erasure of your entire species from history. That's why the most rational and safest option is to assume that every sound you hear is your enemy. Even the possibilities of them being benevolent are not worth the risk. My friends, this absolute paranoia is a cosmic game theory written into the stars. Since trust doesn't exist in a universe, if you see a flashlight in the dark, there's only one logical move left: to quickly eliminate the source of that light before they notice you. The surest way of defense is to be the first to attack. That's why we encounter that deep cuckoo net when we turn our radio telescopes to the sky. We thought that silence was a peaceful loneliness for centuries, but in reality, that cuckoo net is the sound hunters make while lying in wait. The sky is not a peaceful starfield, but an invisible battlefield where billions of beings hold their breath in fear, my friends. Every surviving civilization strictly adheres to the oldest cosmic rule: if you don't want to die, never speak. That peaceful void is actually the silence of fingers ready to pull the trigger. We, on the other hand, are walking right in the heart of this dark forest, completely unaware of the invisible dangers around us. Every sound we make is like a cheerful but equally deadly scream echoing in this dark forest. Our eyes haven't adjusted to the darkness yet, my friends. We behave like children who have just found fire on their own planet. However, the old and cold-blooded hunters in the depths of the forest might have already noticed this noise we make. They might be looking toward us from the shadows, just waiting for the right time to come. This first fire lit by intelligence is also the beginning of an uncertain countdown, my friends. Every light glowing in the dark shows others your location and that you are vulnerable. The universe might have a rigid structure that rewards silence and invisibility. That's why every flame rising toward the sky actually creates a much longer shadow behind itself. As humanity, we experienced this irreversible moment only about a century ago. Our signals progress by passing the closest stars and hitting the shores of foreign worlds, expanding incessantly. As victims of our own inventions, we turn our planet into a silent and desolate bullseye. For a foreign mind in the depths of space, our first radio broadcasts are like a history lesson, my friends. This is an extremely bone-chilling fact. That first light we lit somewhere far away might have already reached an observer who now definitely knows we exist. Their current silence might stem not from their ignorance but just from their patience. Every world climbing out of its own primitive darkness eventually faces the same ruthless moment. We, on the other hand, are still in an unforgivable mistake of walking in the dark while singing songs. The reason why the dark forest theory is so disturbing is that it's not a horror tale, my friends. This is a cold and emotionless logic game written into the stars. In this case, the safest assumption is that the other side will attack you first to ensure their own survival. To see how valid this ruthless logic is, it's enough to look at our own planet's history. When two cultures with different technological levels met for the first time on Earth, the result was rarely peaceful. The unknown always breeds fear, and fear usually feeds preemptive violence. Now carry this familiar and bloody pattern to a cosmic scale, my friends. That's when the dark forest becomes not just plausible but almost inevitable. Survivors are those who learned how to extinguish their signals, how to turn their planets into ghosts. The forest remains silent because of this. We are surrounded by shadows and watched by invisible eyes. The question to be asked is not whether someone else is there. The real question is whether they have already seen us. This survival logic in the depths of space does not involve evil. It relies on two simple and unshakable assumptions. Every living species tries to protect itself, and other life forms have the potential to destroy you. If two civilizations detect each other, the safest move is to eliminate the other first, my friends. From this perspective, silence turns into an act of intelligence. The most advanced species might be the silentest inhabitants of the universe. Our telescopes look for bright signs, but perhaps that is exactly why we haven't found anything. The real masters of the galaxy might be those who never shine. For our own safety, we will one day have to fall into this silence too. When, even on our own world, trust is an extremely fragile concept, how can this be possible in that bottomless void between the stars? Trust is almost impossible between species separated by light years and a completely foreign biology, my friends. In human imagination, the first contact is usually depicted as the meeting of equals, but in the real cosmos, such an encounter will physically be impossible to be balanced. One side will definitely be thousands, maybe millions of years ahead of the other. This situation turns the encounter not into a friendly meeting but into a confrontation between a god and a microbe. Our fate depends entirely on their moral understanding, but neither mercy nor morality is a universal law. A behavior interpreted as friendship by us might be perceived as aggression by them. Under these conditions, trust turns into an equation with no solution. My friends, that's why the reason for the silence among the stars is perhaps not that civilizations cannot find each other. Perhaps it's that they have found each other and learned that the distance between them is too vast for trust to ever cross. In the ruthless logic of the dark forest, trust is not just something rare, but also a deadly gamble. As signals are stretched and weakened by time and distance, the meaning they carry also undergoes a transformation. Every message we send into the depths of space detaches from us and our intentions, becoming an entity in its own right. They turn into ghosts, representing us not in our current state but in our past state. For beings in a distant future who detect our broadcasts, this discovery will be archaeology, not a conversation, my friends. Every answer received is a letter sent to the dead. The cosmos might already be full of such ghosts. Civilizations preserved only in fading radio waves. These signals, which are evidence that someone once lived, thought, and dared to speak, might be the only type of immortality the universe allows. The survival of the echo. If we receive a message from the stars, it means someone chose to break the silence. In a universe that seems to reward silence, this act itself is monumental and highly suspicious. When we look at the night sky, we think how serene the universe is. But this calm might be evidence of what followed after a destruction of inconceivable size. My friends, the darkest possibility behind the Great Silence is the possibility of an invisible war. These wars are conducted not with armies, but with physics itself. A silent and invisible energy beam traveling at the speed of light can sterilize a biosphere in seconds. The possibility of such weapons existing might explain why every world we look at seems so silent. These desolate worlds we see today perhaps once had oceans and rivers. Astronomers have already found ghost planets that surprise us, my friends. These are celestial corpses that could have once been living worlds. Time erases everything. In a million years, the scars of a war would be perfectly blended with the natural patterns of cosmic evolution. For an unskilled eye, destruction would look like creation. Perhaps silence is not a mystery but a warning. A monument written in memory of those who once tried to shout into the void and were forever silenced. Every silent world can be a participant in the longest conflict imaginable. The survival war through silence. There are tombstone planets in the depths of our galaxy that stagger astronomers. My friends, their surfaces are covered with ashes remaining after what seems like a great disaster. The orbits of these worlds are perfect. Their stars are in place, but there isn't a single sign of life on them. It's as if a deliberate hand erased all traces of existence there. If the dark forest theory is true, every glow we see in the night sky is not just an aesthetic light. Some are silent monuments left behind civilizations that made too much noise. The universe is a master at hiding its intent, my friends. Time patiently erases all evidence. Cities, a civilization built in billions of years, can turn to dust in seconds. For an inexperienced eye, destruction looks like a part of creation. When we look at the stars in the sky and ask where is everyone, we might actually be unaware that we are talking in the middle of a huge graveyard. Every fading light is the tragic end of someone who fell into the mistake of revealing their position. My friends, if this silence is the result of a warning, we might have already missed that warning. In the future, another civilization looking at our world might see only a silent piece of rock. Like thousands of other worlds buried in silence, the most lasting legacy of intelligence is its metallic emissaries, my friends. Ancient artificial intelligence probes drifting silently in the depths of space. These are cold observers that no longer breathe, only serving an encoded purpose. Journeys lasting thousands of years are just a short moment for them. If the basic rule of survival is secrecy, these artificial travelers are perfect masters. The purpose of these machines is not to communicate with us, only to observe and follow the direction of development. Perhaps their actual task is to monitor whether a civilization makes too much noise. In the dark forest logic, these machines are perfect monitoring tools, my friends. They continue to fulfill orders written millions of years ago, even if their creators have long since vanished. Remember the mysterious object, named Oumuamua, passing through our solar system in 2017. If it was an artificial intelligence probe, we might have witnessed the immortality form of real intelligence. This thought is both comforting and bone-chilling, because it raises the possibility that someone is already watching us. Perhaps the real heritage of the galaxy is not the fragile voices of biological beings, but the mute witness of these metallic emissaries. We sometimes attribute our deep loneliness under the stars to there simply being no one. But perhaps we are being held under a kind of cosmic quarantine, my friends. According to the zoo hypothesis, much more advanced civilizations are aware of our existence, but prefer to watch us from afar. That skookanet we think is a void is actually the silence of an observation room. Perhaps when we detonated the first atomic bomb, those invisible observers among the stars whispered softly to each other. Contacting us might instantly destroy our social structure. That's why they might be waiting for us to grow up enough to digest this truth. We might be no more than a species that has been discovered and silently taken under protection. Even if we see ourselves as great explorers, my friends, the strange unease we feel when we look at the stars is an ancient survival instinct, sensing that we are indeed being watched. Human history is an archive of conquests made under the name of discovery. If a stranger sets foot on our world, this might bring not that great enlightenment we imagine, but an absolute destruction. Perhaps that's why the silence of the sky is our greatest security wall. This silent quarantine is actually a growth opportunity granted to humanity. My friends, the curiosity that is the most fundamental urge of intelligence is the sacred fire that makes us who we are. But curiosity has always remained a double-edged sword, my friends. Curiosity rewards the brave but always punishes the reckless in the heaviest way. Our passion for reaching knowledge brought dangers we struggle to cope with as much as it offered us the miracles of civilization. What if the basic rule in this universal forest is to restrain your curiosity? Perhaps the surviving civilizations are those who learn to crush their desire for discovery under their survival instincts. We are still very young on a universal scale, and we are too excited to learn to fear, My friends, as we raise our voices a bit more every day, we are actually playing a huge gamble with our species' future. The answer to some questions might be more destructive than we expect. The greatest victory of intelligence is perhaps that moment it knows when to hide. Being human means looking at the horizon and being curious about what's beyond. But if a hunter waits beyond that horizon, our curiosity can be our disaster. The silence of the universe is trying to tell us something. My friends, be careful. Calm down and imagine this deep silence of the universe. Silence is not a threat, but a sanctuary. Set aside your curiosity for now and withdraw to rest within this deep peace. A Dyson sphere might be the most concrete sign to prove the existence of an advanced civilization. My friends, an incredible engineering marvel, harnessing all the power of a star. But according to the dark forest logic, building a Dyson sphere is equivalent to lighting an inconceivably sized campfire. Scientists have been scanning the sky for decades to find these heat signatures, but the result is always the same, a perfect scoop. Perhaps a cautious civilization will never put its species' future at such a great risk. Light is as much evidence of vulnerability as it is a show of power, my friends. The truly wise species are those that announce their existence with a perfect silence. Energy abundance brings exposure instead of security. When we examine the life of the East, we see that hiding is the most advanced survival strategy. My friends, if survival depends on silence, invisibility is the highest rank reached by evolution. A truly advanced species redesigns its entire existence to blend into the natural fabric of space. From the outside, it becomes indistinguishable from natural processes. For our telescopes, such a world looks empty and soulless. But this is the greatest victory of science, not a collapse. Being invisible is the cosmos' greatest protection shield, my friends. We look for bright signs in the sky, but actually, we are just tracing those who failed to survive. The night side of our world glows with light webs woven with technology. But this noise age might be one of the most dangerous phases of our species. Today, our communication is becoming more focused and quieter. Without realizing it, we are starting to fade into the cosmic darkness. Our future grandchildren will understand that shouting at the stars is not courage but a kind of madness, my friends. The day we extinguish our own light will be the day we truly understand the freezing logic of the universe. In 1974, that digital handshake hurled into the depths of space with the Arecibo message was actually a bright flare lit in the middle of a pitch-dark forest. My friends, we clearly presented our own coordinates to the galaxy without knowing who was listening. We made a display of pure faith with this act. But the price of curiosity can sometimes be as heavy as the entire future of a species. That signal is now sifting among the stars like an emissary independent of us, while we wait here for the coming answer. This bottle left in a cosmic ocean will perhaps one day be found only as evidence proving our absence. The absolute silence of the universe actually turns into an answer on its own. My friends, if you want to survive, you must be invisible. The deep skukunet of space is not the absence of life, but a trace left by fear and caution. The freezing distances between the stars make the sense of trust impossible. A misunderstanding can result in the complete destruction of a whole species. Perhaps silence is not evidence of violence, but the result of a great maturity. The silence of civilizations that have grasped that progress is only another type of extinction, unless blended with empathy. My friends, the silence in the sky is not just a void, but also a prophecy for us. If we want to survive, we must also learn when to be quiet. Curiosity can carry us to the stars, but what will allow us to survive will only be our wisdom. The dark forest theory is not just about foreign beings, it's directly about our reflections within ourselves. Perhaps one day when we choose to lower our voices gently, instead of raising them, we will grasp what real intelligence means. Now it's time to leave these deep thoughts to the ancient light of the stars. When you put your head on your pillow, imagine the sky as the home of silent friends sharing a great skukunet, my friends. Billions of minds share the same mysterious stillness. and we are part of this silence. Take a slow and deep breath. Feel the weight of the world disappearing beneath you. All the noises in your mind are slowly fading. Like a wise civilization hiding its light, you are withdrawing toward your own inner peace, into that safe darkness. You no longer need to ask a question or look for an answer, my friends. Leave yourself to the soft and protective peace of the darkness. The stars will continue to keep watch while we sleep. Good night.